It is bitter cold outside this morning. Coming up, advice from experts on how to make sure your kids stay safe in this early season cold snap. That's coming up in just a moment.
Tonight, the Bozeman City Commission expects some public comment on their discussions regarding policy on annexing property in the area. I'll have the details coming up.
Good morning to you. We are approaching the 6:30 hour here, and I tell you, it is nasty out there.
Yes,
I'm Missy O'Malley with Chet Lehman. Matt Elwell is going to explain this forecast here in just a moment, but you might want to settle into it. Your commute is going to take a little bit longer than usual today.
That's because of ice and snow-covered roads. They're extremely slippery this morning. Snow and high winds began yesterday, have left a thick crust of ice and roads, making travel difficult at best this morning. Intersections especially slippery. We've already heard numerous reports of slide-offs and crashes on area roads this morning.
And those bad conditions stretch across our viewing area today. Butte crews were clearing snow yesterday afternoon that left for very slippery conditions today. The Montana Department of Transportation is reporting new snow-covered and icy roads this morning from west of Deer Lodge to east of Livingston and south to the Idaho border.
Basically, if you are within the sound of our voice.
Yep, and remember, we are the only local source for this, so
that is a fact.
Temperatures remain pretty cold. Looking at MDT reports this morning, we've still got a lot of snow and ice on the area roadways, scattered snow and ice between Belgrade and Manhattan, Ennis to Virginia City, snow covered. Norris Hill is open, but it is snow covered, so take your time as you're heading out. Snow and ice on Bozeman Pass, Homestake Pass, and down the Gallatin Canyon. It is going to be a slow go. My main concerns for the morning commute: ice and temperatures. The wind speeds are strong in a few areas, so you may see some blowing and drifting snow. As a look off of our Bozeman Pass along I-90, still some blowing and drifting snow. It is nasty out there, and a wind chill advisory out through noon today. Temperatures right now, not much to be happy about. 0 or below for a few areas, and you look at the wind chill values, and it's 20 below right now. Bundle up as you're heading out the door, both to and from work or school. Temperatures only into the single digits and low teens through most of the day. We're going to break down your forecast coming up in just a few minutes.
Thank you for that, Matt, and thank you for the heads up. It is brutal outside, and while this happens, this sure isn't usual for us this time of year.
MTN's Megan Mannering explains that's why experts are warning parents it's crucial to dress your kids in adequate winter clothing right now.
You might think you're good to go when you send your kids out the door with their boots, gloves, and hooded jackets. But according to Dr. Courtney Hathaway, that basic winter gear doesn't always stand up to frostbite.
Kids are much more susceptible to cold injuries than adults. They have a lower circulating blood volume, their body mass is just distributed differently, and so they lose a lot more heat through their head and their extremities, and they're just not as resilient as adults when it comes to handling cold. So they're going to get cold faster, and then they're going to get a cold injury easier than an adult exposed to those same temperatures.
Oftentimes, gloves and socks become damp as kids wait outside at the bus stop or play in the snow at recess. Dr. Hathaway offers a few remedies for this issue.
If you can have waterproof shoes on, or a change of socks or a change of shoes that they can put on when they get to school, that's super helpful for their feet. And then similarly with gloves, those little easy to put on stretchy gloves are great, but in kiddos that are really active and they're going to be playing in the snow, they're not at all waterproof, and so then they're going to get wet. And if they have that wet material on their hands and then it gets even colder outside, then that exposes their hands to even increased risk of cold injuries.
Hathaway noted that even parents who pay extra attention to how their kids are dressed for the cold can still make a simple mistake.
It gets tricky for parents this time of year because you want them bundled up, you want them in those nice big winter coats when they're out playing or going to and from the bus stop, but in the car and in their car seats, they shouldn't have big puffy layers on.
Taking off layers before placing babies and toddlers into car seats ensures that their harness will fit properly. Dr. Hathaway suggests placing the winter coat over the car seat harness after your kids are strapped in.
Also, as you get those kids ready for school this morning, Dr. Hathaway says a good rule of thumb: dress them in one extra layer than you would need to be comfortable outside. Probably a good piece of advice for all of us.
Absolutely.
If you're going to be spending any time outside.
Certainly.
Yeah.
And with this recent snowfall and the cold snap, low temperatures, Bozeman's HRDC has decided to open the doors early for its warming center.
Yeah, normally the center doesn't open until November 1st. The warming center at 2104 Industrial Drive opened nightly from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Last year, the warming center hosted 263 people, including women and families.
And Gallatin County officials and the State Department of Transportation will be holding a public discussion about the future of the Axtell Bridge.
Yeah, the one-lane bridge, which is more than 100 years old, located off of Axtell-Anthony Road. It's a popular recreation destination. Bridge has seen more traffic in recent years because of development and growth. MDT will introduce 3 plans, ranging from building a new 2-lane bridge and doing some road work on Axtell-Anthony Road to keeping the old bridge with some improvements.
I think all of these old truss bridges have a lot of nostalgia for people that grew up here. As with all things, the better solutions cost a lot more money. So you kind of have to balance what's the best solution based on the amount of money that we have to work with.
Now, the county and MDT are still in the early planning phases. Actual construction on the bridge won't begin for another few years. Public meeting will be at 6 p.m. tonight at the Gallatin Gateway Community Center.
And the city of Bozeman wants to get rid of some donut holes.
Now, donut holes are tracts of private land that are surrounded by land that's actually owned by the city.
MTN's Gabby Crevitt has our story.
Tonight, the Bozeman City Commission voted unanimously to amend policies for landowner-initiated annexation of property. In recent years, the city has only annexed property that was petitioned and initiated by the landowner. Landowners often petition for annexation because of sewer failure.
These inholdings, for the most part, there are some exceptions, but for the most part, they're on septic and well water. And so the question is, what will it cost to put in a sewer and water line? Can I still use the well to water my grass? Yes, you can. But all those kinds of questions, and then the price tag that goes with them, and then a time frame. You know, how soon will this be?
Currently, there are over 30 areas of unincorporated land scattered throughout Bozeman. The city of Bozeman says there are some important reasons for annexation, including public health and safety, tax fairness, and efficiency of services. But not everybody is on board with this idea for lots of reasons.
The conversation tonight suggests to me that we landowners still feel a little bit at the whims of whatever commission happens to be in place.
It's unclear to me how the county to city codes will be handled, if they'll be grandfathered in or required change.
People worry about additional costs of being annexed by the city, especially since that means their taxes will go up. In Bozeman, Gabby Crevitt, MTN News.
Now, the commission is still discussing the extension of services plans for the city-initiated annexations.
6:37 now. Governor Steve Bullock has announced more than $31 million in federal tax credits will be going to 6 communities around the Treasure State.
And that money will be used to preserve or to build new affordable housing units in Missoula, Helena, Dillon, Bozeman, among other towns. The Timber Ridge Apartments in Bozeman will receive more than $6 million to build 30 homes for seniors.
Now, a housing summit will be held today in Butte, taking a look at issues like affordable housing.
The Rocky Mountain Association of Realtors is hosting this summit at the Copper King Hotel and will feature experts in housing to speak during the event. Now, the event will also address the importance of getting more affordable housing in Butte and Anaconda.
Home ownership matters, and to have affordable housing for our workforce, for our police officers, our general workforce in our communities is very, very important.
Now, the free event begins at 11 o'clock this morning. Economist Patrick Barkley will begin his keynote speech at noon today.
In other headlines, state regulators are taking comment on the draft rules to establish sports betting here in Montana.
MTN's Jonathan Imbarian has a closer look at those proposals.
On Monday morning, the Montana Lottery gave the public a chance to give their input on proposed rules to bring legalized sports betting to the state.
We want the public to be involved. That's very important to us. So today's hearing was the chance for people to say in person what they thought about the rules.
During this year's legislative session, lawmakers passed a bill authorizing sports wagering under the Montana Lottery. The lottery unveiled draft rules earlier this month. The proposed rules would allow sports betting only at businesses with gambling operator licenses. Players could bet in person at licensed facilities, or they could create sports wagering accounts to bet using electronic devices. People would be able to put spending limits and other limits on the accounts to encourage responsible gaming, and they would be able to file a form to keep an account from being created in their name. One point of discussion Monday was over a rule that sports betting could only be offered at businesses that hold a liquor license. The Montana Tavern Association supported that provision.
It's clear during the legislative process that this sports betting product was designed to be in bars, restaurants, and taverns. that held an appropriate alcohol license and that are licensed gaming operators.
But opponents said that rule is creating an additional restriction that wasn't part of the law.
You got to have a liquor license. Well, that would exclude such as establishments such as bingo.
Lottery leaders say they're still on track to roll out sports betting around the end of this year.
Our timeline hasn't changed. We're just moving forward towards product launch even as this public process is happening.
In Helena, Jonathan Amberian, MTN News.
Now, the Lottery Commission is still accepting written and online comments on the proposed rules through next Monday. It is time for a quick break here on this very chilly Tuesday morning. And if you're just tuning in, take it slow this morning. It's so icy out there. It is time for a quick break. Coming up, Americans lost $1.5 billion to fraud schemes last year. Up next, we take a look at a scam running across the nation and what you can do if you or someone you know gets hit.
But first, let's check in with Anthony Mason to see what's coming up at 7 o'clock.
Good morning. Ahead on CBS this morning, did the CDC prevent climate change research? Hear from the whistleblower who accuses the agency of silencing his efforts for what he claims are political reasons. Plus, finding a way to forgive. Singer-songwriter Allison Moore tells us how she's using music to move on from a family tragedy. See you at 7.